everybody. This is Dan Kidder coming to you live from the Kidder Communication Headquarters in Cedar City, Utah. I have just received word. I was out knocking doors, collecting signatures, got quite a few tonight, and I just received word that we are there. With 7 days to spare, we have reached 10% of the voting population, and we've got some packets out still that will come in, and we believe, we haven't verified yet, but we believe that we will have done it in all 4 voter participation areas in the city. We were required to get 3 of the 4, 10% of the voters in 3 of the 4, for a total of 1,647 votes. We've collected over 2,000 votes, but they're still going through and they're certifying those. But we have surpassed our requirement, so much so that the city can't even possibly challenge that. So what does that mean on this referendum? That means that come November, the next regularly scheduled election, you as a resident of Cedar City will have the right to vote on whether you believe the city should borrow up to $7 million with an $8.3 million payback. When you borrow money, you got to pay the principal and the interest. So you'll have a choice on the ballot on whether you want that amount of money to be borrowed by the city council and by the city to build this basketball recreation center. So I want to give a huge shout out to all of the volunteers. We've had over 100 volunteers out beating on doors, having meet and greets at the library, in front of grocery stores, accosting people in the parking lot. I wish I could say I collected a lot more signatures than I have. I changed jobs recently, started a business, and that ended up taking a lot more time than I had anticipated. So I want to give a huge shout out to all of those volunteers in Cedar City who put in the shoe leather, knocked their knuckles raw to get us across the finish line a week early. All the signature packets are at the city or the county clerk's office, and they're over there working away furiously, verifying every one of those signatures. And we are proclaiming a victory here for the voters of Cedar City, so that they can go out and have a vote on whether we want to indebt our children's grandchildren, over the next 30 years for this recreation facility. It's interesting when you look at this. We've got the aquatic center, and this is going to be attached to the aquatic center. I was kind of crunching some numbers around, and the aquatic center loses over $400,000 a year. The loan payback is $277,000 a year on this recreation center they want to borrow this money for. The operations and maintenance, we're looking at almost $1 million a year for the next 30 years. So that we can have some indoor recreation facility on the hill that most people won't even be able to afford to use. So we are far from over with this fight. We have met the deadlines, we've met the requirements, even though the city just felt that it only had to have substantial compliance with the law. We actually did it by having actual compliance with the law. We complied with every aspect of the law. What happened? Let me give you a little background. You might be interested in this. So last year, there was a tax cut that was going to raise the taxes on every price of goods that you bought in the state. And the citizens of this state overturned that by referendum. Now, the legislature just turned around and said, well, okay, we'll repeal the law. We won't, implement it. But the work was done, it was certified, it was done, it was good. So after that happened, the legislature got together and said, well, how dare those peons overturn us? We know what's best for everybody. We're gonna make it harder to do a referendum going forward. So we were the first group here in Cedar City that had done this under the new, harder to do referendum rules. So we had the voter participation areas. Oh, by the way, the city never created those, even though a year ago they were supposed to do that by law. Of course, there was no teeth in the law, right? We don't hold our elected leaders accountable if they don't follow the law. We forced them to do that. They had to do the voter participation areas because of this referendum. So it's much harder now to do a referendum. We did it. You did it. All of you who came out, signed these packets, knocked on doors, put down the miles, hundreds of volunteers, pat yourself on the back, take a nap, and then get ready, because we're going to be still fighting. We have got to convince people that this is a bad idea to build this recreation center in Cedar City. So we're going to have an opportunity to vote on that. And now our next step is to convince people to vote against spending this money and burdening this community with generations of debt and not being able to take care of necessary improvement and infrastructure, water, sewer, fire department, police. I would love to be able to pull into a parking lot in Cedar City and not rub my bumper off pulling into the parking lot. Let's get the drainage underground. But we don't have the money for that because we're too busy servicing debt for recreation facilities that lose a ton of money every year. We've got a couple $1 million that we're going to be paying just in recreation centers that lose money. So now the next step is going to be, let's convince people why this is a bad idea. And as always, I encourage anyone who wants more information on this to go to referendum.ironcountytaxpayers.net. Thanks for your hard work, and let's keep up the fight.